Welcome to Satsang, everyone. Welcome to Satsang with all the friends around the world. We are very close to midsummer in Sweden and in Europe, and close to midwinter in Australia. A time for shift and change. My idea to start the evening is to just be here to meditate. I'm going to play a little bit of flute. Just very simple. I'm not a kind of evolved flautist, but I somehow dug it out again, and it's very beautiful to move from sound to silence, and then we see what happens. There's so much happening in the world, and so much happening actually in the moment in my life, about uncertainties on every level, especially around travels and courses and work, and how the mind wants to grasp a certain certainty, and I'm wonderfully confronted with what I invite everybody else to actually open up to the unknown. And I wish so much to know whether God, in the name of Australia, allows me to leave Australia or not. I don't know what the divine is up to. And I take it in little doses. So today I cancelled the first course in Europe because it doesn't fit into, and maybe next week I have to cancel more, and maybe next week I have to cancel everything, and then I'm going to be another 3 months here at least, or not. But today I have a day where it drives me crazy. So I need to listen to my teachings about resting in the unknown. And I think silence behind the sounds is a very helpful thing. Are you all warm enough? Yeah. So a little bit of play, and then we just kind of drop into the silence after it. No? a deep breath. We're just kind of coming a little bit to the surface to only go deeper in a moment. What just came to me is something that I want to remember. Just before the satsang, I had a call with Germany, and there's a very close friend, I think many of you know her, Navanita, the dancing Navanita. And she is in hospital. She just had a 8-hour operation, and apparently it doesn't look very good. So I said I'm going to have a little collective prayer for her. And in one way, she gave a beautiful teaching to her friends in the hospital when everything looked already very hopeless. She said something where the body is doing its thing, and I'm in bliss, I'm just watching. The body is just doing its thing, and I'm just watching. I think we heard this possibility many times, and maybe we have touched something like this, but I think it's quite intense when actually the body is doing its thing that is very, very close to the body leaving, or maybe not leaving. So I want to dedicate the light of the candle today to our beloved Navanita. And whatever happens, that insight, that possibility that we can all watch the body doing its thing. Of course we do whatever we can to keep the temple as healthy as possible, but ultimately it's going to go. And one of my prayers, at least, is that I remember that the body is doing its thing, and I'm just watching, and I'm in bliss today. And it's funny that these things come kind of always in little packages. Like today I was sitting with a friend who is moving through chemotherapy and has incredible pain in the body everywhere. And we've been sitting for an hour. And she was in total bliss. Me too. There was this kind of a presence in the room way beyond this little fragile body that kind of is drugged with some really toxic drugs. And it makes it so more directly experienceable that it's very obvious we're not the body. It's very obvious that there's something that also in these gatherings we touch that is much. Why do we love it? Or why I do love it? Maybe you have different reasons, but we're kind of melting into something more real than anything that comes and goes. And that what comes and goes has space. And we don't need to choose. You know, this evening when I started the satsang, the little me wants to choose. I want to have securities. I want to know what's going to happen in the next moment. I want to know whether Australia lets me go. But a little bit deeper than that, it's completely irrelevant. It's like that's whatever's going to happen is happening. And that which is aware is unchangeable. It's unchanging. Maybe if it gets so hot, we can switch it off. It's hanging on the wall. You want to press the stop button?
This will wake me up.
And we'll wake you up. It's getting warm. Thank you. For me, these situations are such a direct pointer. Because on the surface there is so much drama happening in the world. No? Incredible drama on every level. And the attempt to somehow make sense out of the drama or make sense just occupies the mind so incredibly. And yet just sitting here, everything falls in place. All is well. Reminds me when, you know, in the last months of Osho's life, when he, I don't know if anybody was there in Pune, when Osho came out and he didn't speak anymore, but he just came out with the namaste. And the vibe, so much grace, and his body was in total pain. And we could see that the body gets more and more transparent. Of course, we didn't really see the reality that he's going to go very soon, because we were, at least I was, too attached. You know, how the master cannot just go. But that it's hard to describe that undoing of the form and the attention on the formless. If we can remember that during the day, sometimes when we are so involved in our story, in our, you know, whatever it is, relationship, work, COVID-19, and all the theories that people come up with, positive, negative. There's so much chaos on the surface. And when we go a little deeper, we touch something so eternal, no? So endless, timeless now. So maybe you want to close your eyes for a moment and we just kind of tune into Navanita, she may even be in the operation theater now. I'm not so sure. And it's apparently it's touch and go whether she's going to make it or not. And
where is she?
She is near Hamburg in northern Germany. And rather than doing something or sending her something, or I think the best or the most helpful space is to tune into the being, the eternal being, to tune into that vastness of being that is just kind of watching this body, wondering whether the body will make it or not. And the being is love. And Navanita she's been a dancer and teaching wonderful dance for many, many, many years. And she's kind of a amazing being, because in Pune she had a horrible accident in the bus from Goa back to Pune, where she broke endless amount of bones and thought she never can dance anymore, and it all healed, and for another almost 30 years she was dancing, teaching dancing. And now the dance is moving into spirit. Maybe we can tune into the joy of the formless that tenderly holds this body that is a little bit or massively out of order, and the doctors and whoever is caring for her are trying their best to keep her in the body. And we can tune into the joy and the light body of this beautiful being. And I feel on that level we are very connected. We are one. So when we, as a little group or as a group around the world that is tuning into this satsang, if we rest as peace, rest as love, then everything that needs to fall into order falls into order, and how that order looks like we don't know. So a few very loving moments for Navanita. And then we can extend this loving space to any other friend that you may have that is basically not so well in the body anymore, or close to transition, or needing some more healing. And there we can perhaps feel how whatever is happening within the body-mind is wonderfully held in space, in love. and presence. Mm. Yes, and a deep breath, and all the blessings to Navanita. Hmm. Now, at the beginning of the satsang, I missed to say, also especially to the friends that are looking online, if there's any comment, any question, anything you want to write, Steve is here, and he will read if you have a question, and then maybe I will be able to say a few things. And of course, all the friends that are present here, if you have anything to share or comment or any insight for yourself, you're very welcome. Or any question that you feel is popping up in our situation here. And Steve will give me a little sign if the online friends have a question. Yes. Come. Hey, brother.
You know, I just want to share a little story.
Yeah, go ahead.
So last week you said, you know, freedom only comes here now. It doesn't come in the future. And you said, you know, like if you say, once I finally clear this thing with my mother, I'll be free. And you said, forget it. Well, once I clear this thing with my brother, I'll be free.
Mm.
So that was a beautiful message. And then I forgot it about 2 days later.
Yeah, well, I need to say it also again because I keep forgetting it too.
So what happened was, you know the family drama, family stuff, right?
Family is mostly drama, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'm in charge of the family estate, and that's almost done. Right?
Mm. Almost.
Almost done. I've got one last thing to do,
Mm-hmm.
and something came in from the States, and then I had to get something to America urgently. Mm-hmm. And I said, once I get this to America, I'll be free of my brother. Right?
Yeah.
So
sounds like a good hope.
So what did I do? So I go I drive to Burley Heads,
Mm-hmm.
and I get right at FedEx because
Mm-hmm.
it's going to get there. If I get it there by Thursday morning, it's going to be there Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's going to be put into the trust account.
Mm-hmm.
Then I can send out the rest of the money.
Mm-hmm.
Done. Right? So what happens, right? This is what happens. FedEx, right? I was at FedEx in Memphis, Tennessee. I know how it works.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's fail-safe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the barcoding, the tracking. So what happens is it leaves on Thursday, it goes to Sydney on Friday, it flies, it's in San Francisco. They said absolutely you'll be there Monday. It's sitting in San Francisco until Tuesday. Then it goes to Memphis, the big sorting facility. And then it gets shipped to Ann Arbor, Michigan, where my investment advisors are, which are going to take this thing and they're going to deposit it into this trust account. And then it doesn't arrive. And then yesterday it still didn't arrive, so then I checked it today. So what happened was, you know, this is just the universe showing me. What happens is that left Memphis, where it's supposed to clear customs, goes to Michigan, it gets put in the truck, they bring it to the place, and right before they give it to them, they say, oh no, it hasn't cleared customs, bring it back. Yeah. So it's now sitting in Ann Arbor Depot, uncleared in customs, but it has to clear somewhere else, so they don't know what to do with it. So it's just sitting there. Right? So it's just like, and then I'm writing to my friend, I'm like, I can't believe this happened, you know, because the last time I said something FedEx a year ago to sell my mother's house, it had to be there by the Tuesday for the selling of her house, and then there was a hiccup then too. And it's like, and so I write to my friend today, and I'm saying, and she goes, didn't that happen before, last time? I'm like, yeah, it did actually. And I said, yeah, you know, and I said, my narcissist's brother, right? And I'm like, oh, okay. So I still have this story. So what you said last week was, we're manifesting from our stories and our and the identities we're holding on to. That's what I'm curious about. Because I know this is my manifestation.
Yeah.
But this is absolutely, and the last one too, a year ago.
Well,
you know?
It's not your manifestation, it's the manifestation of your egoic pattern. That's not you.
Yeah.
That is basically the program. And I think what is most interesting in the whole thing is what we call projection. It's like we all project constantly. It's like we're sitting here, and when you look at anyone here, you don't see the person. Forgive me, but we see our projection of the person. So we always see our own story. And that is kind of a normal human situation. I don't know if you have that. You walk, you meet somebody, and immediately you have certain thoughts about the person. Yeah? And these thoughts are kind of energy systems that kind of then move into a certain form of expression. And love affairs are the best projections. Yeah? It's like at first you project all the beauty, if it's a good, fresh love affair, and that person is absolutely your absolute angel, if it's, and forever and ever. And then something happens and you hate the same person, and it's still the same person. But what has changed is our projection. And these projections, they play out into reality in certain ways, because it's a kind of all energy. So I don't know how it happened that FedEx just did the same thing, but obviously it has something to do with your projection with your brother.
Yeah, that's what I felt too.
And again, there it gets interesting, because what we do in therapy, then we want to change the movie. We want, or if somebody, you fall in love with somebody that looks like your mother or like your father, and then you want to change the movie. But what we keep forgetting is that projection can only happen if there's a projector. It's like a movie projector is here, and we only see the projection. And all it needs is to return to the projector, which is the true I am. And then, now you're sitting here and you're sharing the story. And there's a smile on your face, because that smile is the, right. Here is the drama of the movie. Am I that movie? Or am I that which is aware? And just when the ego story thought, now it's finished, existence says, wait a minute, then the movie continues. It just has another twist. This is what we love about movies. But the projector, and unless, I mean, it's a little tricky. It's really devastating. I don't know if you have that sometimes, that you're in deep conversation with somebody and you look and suddenly the other is gone. You don't see anybody anymore. Even though you're very close. And then suddenly both drop into a completely different space where there is no other, where there is just a presence shared. This is the beauty of Satsang. It's like, the personalities they are all there. We all have our story and our trips and our, projections, and yet there is something that is so attractive that, at least for us here sitting here, that has nothing to do with the personality. It has something to do with that through which the light of awareness projects.
And just what just came was also, you project that story to hold on to an identity.
Yeah, the little me wants to continue.
Victim of the family, you know?
Yeah.
Just whatever that story is. Yeah.
The subtle victim of the family. That's a good role. Yeah. We could work on that one. Yeah.
Of course, it's not true, but
and what we don't, what we miss is that there's always Osho coming into my mind where he says, seeing is enough. And when we just see it,
I just saw that.
To see is to be free. Yeah. It doesn't need to change. It may kind of repeat itself again. Rama, since we talked about, body sickness, the story of Ramana came. Ramana basically died of cancer, and he had throat cancer, so he couldn't swallow anymore. And the guy was, all the disciples were really concerned and pitying him that he cannot eat anymore. I said, I don't need to eat anymore. You can eat for me. I'm you. And of course, body will go, but I won't go. I will always be here. It sounds so simple, but that's the truth. No? So then you can, you see the wonderful family drama, it may not stop. Maybe it resolves itself, maybe not. Who cares? It's kind of another level, no? Because our tendency, at least my tendency, probably each one has a different tendency, but the tendency is to fix and repair the movie. And to a certain extent we are actually managing. And yet, if we add the other dimension, it's so relaxing, because then it doesn't matter whether the movie gets repaired, whether the body gets repaired. Of course, we do everything for the body to be healthy. We eat the right food, we do cape walks and go surfing and do all these things to stay fit. And yet it's very obvious that body goes, money goes, brother goes, family. It's a wonderful, wonderful movie. And just when you think it's solved, it's not solved.
And like you said last week, you just said, forget it. What's happened is in the past.
It's in the past. No?
It's not even real anymore.
But the energy patterns, I think this is, what you're pointing to is, if we have the thought of past lives, or future lives, or karma, it's basically certain energy patterns that kind of continue to recreate certain structures so that the pattern continues. But the more presence comes into it, maybe these patterns fall more into harmony. This is how I see how healing can happen. And if I look at the craziness of the world, it gets more and more nuts. So it needs to be so chaotic, apparently, that the identification with all that nonsense becomes impossible. That's the only hope, I think. Yeah. And then when it's completely impossible to define yourself through anything that is happening. I mean, if you just look at, at the illogical craziness here, and this is very personal, this is my personal story. Here I am, I want to just leave Australia to go to Europe. And because of the COVID-19, they don't let you leave the country, which means if you leave, are you endangering the country? No. You actually take one more possibility away. And at the same time, out of that fear that something could happen, they allowed 20,000 people on a rally in Sydney. Is that nuts?
A little bit.
Yeah? Is that logical? Is that kind of... does it make any sense? Does that create more wholeness? No, it needs to get so chaotic that you cannot hold on to anything. Mm. And when you cannot hold on to anything, then maybe you become aware of the projector. Mm-hmm. Maybe you become aware of the space of that which is aware of all that amazing, chaotic situation. Mm-hmm. And as the individual heals through relaxing into what is, maybe the collective heals into a deep, deep relaxation of all control. And the moment the control is everywhere, it creates more chaos. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I mean, this is just another way of looking at things. So, I'm curious how the story continues. When FedEx, it's like, it's like these TV series.
Okay, here's how it continued today. So I got up this morning and then I said, okay, I'm going to call them. I'm going to get it expedited. This is classic. So I decided to call the U.S. direct instead of the Australian office. I call the U.S. I say, this is my number. They go, oh yeah, this is what's happened. It didn't clear in the Memphis. And they shipped it anyway, so it hadn't cleared customs, but they shipped it to the destination. So now they realize they shouldn't have done that, so it's now sitting at the depot in Michigan, Detroit. So I said, okay, well, I need to get this expedited because this is a legal document and blah, blah, blah. And they said it would be there Monday. It's already Friday, Thursday. Okay, I'll put you through to the expedite manager. So I get this person. And I hear chickens in the background. I think it's Filipino. I can tell the accent. Yeah. Right. And then I say, "Yep, I'm trying to." Yes, Mr. Lair, I know what I've been told what the problem is. And however, are you calling from America? I said, no, I'm calling from Australia. Oh, I'm sorry, we can't expedite this for you because you're calling from overseas. I just started laughing. I just laughed. I said, this is FedEx, this is a worldwide company, right? Yeah. You have to call the Australian one or something. And then, anyway. Yeah. So 2 hours later.
Well, at least you got an answer. I was hanging on the phone for 2 hours with the Department of Home Affairs asking what my 2 applications to leave Australia, where they are at. All I can see, sir, is that you did the application. I said, yes. What about it? We cannot tell you. Well, do you know what about it? No, we don't know. But how can I find out whether there's a chance? I don't know, sir. You have to wait. Nobody knows anything. Nobody answers. In the department that has total power of your freedom of movement. That's the little me that is
I was
frustrated.
going to say, that's not very German.
No, it's very un-German.
Yeah.
Hmm? And and then of course it's, I have also a smile. I said, oh, maybe I can just be here another 3 months. Yay! Who knows? No?
Anyway, I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah, let me know how it goes. Anyway, if you just
I think it'll
remember
be fine.
that you are the projector, then whatever
Yeah, and then I realized, and then
whatever the movie is, you
I
can
saw my
enjoy
brother
them.
as he really is,
Yeah,
not as the narcissistic
yeah.
person that I was projecting onto him.
He's a being.
Yeah,
He's a wonderful human being.
he's a beautiful soul that's quite hurt.
But the thing is, we don't want the oneness, no? Because otherwise we don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
If I don't have any judgment about anybody, I'm one with the other. And then it's a funny world. Thank you. Thank you. I think the possibility of being happy or at peace no matter what is incredible. That perhaps we don't need any condition. I tell that to you, I tell that to me. It's like we don't need anything in the outer world or in our egoic structure to change, to remember that which is aware of all experience. That's such a good news. No? And I mean, maybe for us here, it's so, we heard it so many times and we have experienced it in many glimpses, so that it's something absolutely natural. We all nod and say, oh yeah, of course. But when you go out in the world and you meet friends who have never heard of that possibility, that they are not the story, but the witness of the story, you become very compassionate, because, oh my God, if you're only caught in this little prison of mental activity, trying to live your life, and this is why there's so much chaos in the world, because, I mean, from one day to the other, I think in America there were 20 million people jobless. Can you imagine what wave of freak out that creates in the whole country? And here in Australia, of course, same. We are so fortunate. We're kind of hanging out in lockdown in paradise. And yet, we find ourselves complaining. Yes.
Anna Heggie.
Anna Heggie.
H-E-G-G-I-E.
H-A-G-G. Anna, I don't know. Hello, Anna. Hello.
Good evening, Rahasya.
Good evening.
Can you please speak more about what you feel comes after death? Soul union with a greater being, or reincarnation, or nothingness?
Darling, I cannot tell you because I'm not dead yet. I wish I could. But I have a sense that which is aware of all experience will be aware of the body dying, and will be aware of the dead body. But that is not individual. That which is aware is the same in you as in me. It is actually not something, it is space. That's the beauty. I mean, if you look at how different religions name it, you know? They name it God, they name it Buddha nature, they name it the Tao, they name it existence, they name it love, they name it space, they name it consciousness, they name it awareness. What is common to all these words? It is they don't point to an object. They point to space. Now, because the mind cannot fathom space, religion calls it something like God. God is somebody. But has anybody ever seen God? It's not a somebody. It's not a bearded guy in the clouds. It's a space. But it's a space that is beyond our little me, and it has maybe kind of an endless frequency. So what comes after death? That which is always here. Nothing comes and nothing goes. That's my guess. But my body needs to die before I can actually prove myself right or wrong. But then I cannot talk anymore. But there's an interesting piece which is mysterious to me, is that even though we are space and we are one, there's certain frequencies, you know, it's like many friends here have been with Osho, and when we tune, I would say, I hope probably it's the same for you, if we tune into Osho, there's a certain frequency that we name Osho. And if you then ask somebody, well, can you describe it? Well, it's love, it's space, it's awareness, it's humor, it is stillness, is it eternity, and it is limitlessness. Or when I tune into my beloved Nura, who passed away, it's still the moment my attunement goes there is light and love. Now we call it something, so I call it Nura, but it's not Nura as somebody. It's like a certain frequency that is available through that memory. So if you die, if your body dies, there will be friends who have a loving memory of this form, or of the essence that is still there, even if the form is gone. And this is at least my explanation why, even if during lifetime you really didn't like somebody, when this somebody is dead, suddenly you're full of love for them. Why? Because the essence of the person is not the obnoxious personality. The essence is always space, love, peace, silence, Buddha nature. So, I mean, it's a great question. It's a wonderful mystery, which then brings us to the question, well, is there actually a soul? Is there an individual soul? In my understanding, there's no individual soul anymore. There's just one presence. But then how can you explain, you know, the reincarnation of the Tibetan lamas? That's again a mystery. So there's consciousness that has evolved in a body that finds a new body to continue the journey. I don't get these two things together. I cannot give you a logical explanation. The only thing that I can say is, and this is probably the most scary bit for most of the seekers, is when I go in deeper than the mind, deeper than the body, deeper than the emotion, deeper than all experience, there is no one. Anybody has that? You know? Fuck, there is no one. Yeah, just a big Yahoo. Yeah? And that's such a relief if you can relax into it. And it's such a shock if for the first time you come across, because everything in our mind, but you know, I exist, and no, there is no one. So that's already during lifetime. Now, watch when you're dead. Yeah, I think somebody wrote something.
We've got 3 questions.
Okay, that's an interesting topic. 3 questions.
3 different people.
Yeah.
So the first one, 4 actually. Sajjad Gamta.
Ah, Sajan. Namaste.
Can you talk about the difference between identification with pain and becoming pain itself?
Oh, that's a good question. Identification with pain is then you are actually creating a me out of pain. And when we create a me out of pain, we want to get rid of it. We want to, you know, in identification there is still a separate sense of self that finds itself separate from the whole. No? But oneness with pain is there's no more separation. No? And you may have experienced that yourself, and if not, or whoever listens to this, the end of pain is the total oneness with pain. The end of fear is the total experience of fear in the willingness to be it. The moment you are one, the division disappears. And the moment the division disappears, the resistance disappears, because resistance needs 2. It needs the experience and the resistance to it. But the moment you are one, there's no more resistance, because there is no you separate from the experience. Osho called it totality. Osho was always after us, be total. Be total. And the example was often when he talked about Nijinsky, the great dancer, that was so much absorbed in dance that he became the dance. And then things were possible in his movements that in normal doing dance would be impossible. He was jumping like a feather. And I think many of us have experiences of moments of total oneness. For me, I think the first time experiencing this was skiing, when you have a virgin slope of deep powder and the body does it, and there's no one else. There's just total harmony as body and snow and movement and ecstasy. Because there's no more separation, there's no more doer, there's no more, it's all happening. So when you're identified with pain, then you think you are the pain, but you create a sense of self. And when there's absolutely no more resistance, when there's total surrender, it took me ages to understand when Osho talked about surrender, because I felt, my ego doesn't want to surrender, come on. But the surrender is the total allowing of that which is already here. And then in the allowing, the experience of pain, which is the suffering disappears because there's no sufferer anymore. There's just that experience, just that feeling, just that sensation. And through our human existence, nowadays there's a lot of work with trauma, and every trauma is actually an experience and the residue of the resistance to the experience that has embodied itself and repeats itself. That's why somatic experiencing can release that, because you come back into the totality of experience rather than the story of it. And then that is the healing. The healing is when the me disappears in the experience. Hope that makes sense.
Maria Paz.
Maria.
Rahasya, what is, according to your experience, that which puts us to sleep when the egoic mind manifests something we attach to?
What puts us to sleep?
When the egoic mind manifests something we attach to.
Well, that is the what puts us to sleep, the attachment. When the mind jumps on an experience and creates a story out of it, and creates a me out of it. And that, I think we all do that. So then, then the ego, if you're then on a spiritual journey, the ego grabs it and wants to get rid of itself, which doesn't work. That's more ego. So instead of making the ego an infamous enemy, it's very helpful to, welcome whatever sense of self you become aware of, because you're still the awareness. So what you call falling asleep is basically you forget, in this case I call falling asleep, you forget that you're awareness. But the moment you remember your awareness, the whole thing is finished. And the beauty of falling asleep is that you can wake up. Without sleep you wouldn't wake up, right? So beware about wanting to get enlightened, because then everything is finished. You don't have the joy of waking up anymore. That's a joke. Yeah. Because awakening is not an experience, it's just a very simple remembering. All that ever happened in me. Happened in that which is aware. And that's kind of mind-blowing, because I'm so vast. We are so vast. And the little me tries to make a package out of infinity. It's impossible. Does that make sense, Maria?
She sends many news.
Mm. Was there anything else? Good. Just close your eyes for a moment. Shall I play a little bit more? Mm-hmm. Yeah? You just kind of drop into the thing behind the sound. Drop into the space behind the words. Drop into the isness behind the body. Drop into the nobodiness. It's always there. It's just our attention habitually moves into the somebodiness. But the nobodiness is always here. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing this precious space. Now, on Tuesday there will be a meditation in the Temple Byron at 6:30, and the idea is I'm going to share a little bit, and then we share the Atisha meditation, which I think is a very important and powerful meditation in these turbulent times. And that's at 6:30, no? 6:30. And it would be beautiful. Basically, Temple Byron is revived these days. I think last Tuesday was the first time again, and it's beautiful.
Very comfortable, nice and warm, lots of blankets
and I heard there's an AC in the heating situation. No? And then, so I wish you a very happy solstice. Here it's winter solstice, and I remember in Sweden it's a midsummer festival. It's a very beautiful celebration. It's the longest day. I was once in midsummer in Norway, and we could see the midnight sun, which is a very strange experience. We were in this wonderful hotel room, and the sun at midnight was shining into the room. It's amazing. And it's a beautiful time for shift, for change, for moving into a different climate. So maybe we can, support a shift in more and more presence for the world in this time. So have a beautiful evening, and Fridays continue. See you next Friday. Who knows how often, how long, but the next one definitely. Thank you.